This is a multi-purpose exclusive listing agreement. It allows you to either lease or sell the property on behalf of the owner. And it's unlike the car form. You have to manually enter the information as far as the seller's information. If you look at the car form, which is slightly different, say for example, I come in here and I'm looking at a car form. Car form, you have this: parties, property, document, checklist, services, history. Whereas the air form, you don't have any of this. So you have to kind of manually enter the information. So that's something you don't have for air form. You see, nothing on top. Okay? So something to keep in mind. All right, let's say I have this warehouse that I'm listing about to list. Let's see, let me make sure I get the right library. Therefore, exclusive right to represent the owner. You got exclusive right to represent the buyer. Remember our policy on exclusive representation of buyer. You always want to represent the buyer exclusively whenever you get a chance. One thing to keep in mind is when you deal with Chinese buyers, many of them don't like to print out documents, sign, scan, and then send it back to you. They would prefer to just do the e-sign. All right? If you insist on them doing too much work to sign the listing agreement, you will not get their cooperation. So you will, first opportunity you get, you set up the e-sign for them to sign the exclusive buyer representation. In fact, if you can get them to sign as early as possible, that will be great. Okay? You want to make sure, especially when they are looking for special purpose commercial property, we don't want to share our valuable resources with these buyers and not have the exclusive. Because if you don't have the exclusive, you provide the listing information to the buyer. They can share this listing information with another agent who will then make use of your resources to make the deal. Okay, because you don't have an exclusive. Also, when you provide listing information to your buyer, there's a way to exclude the property address. Essentially, you provide everything except for the property address. That way, if they want to go a step further to submit an offer or want to make an appointment to see this property, they have to go through you. And hopefully by that time, you would have had the signed buyer exclusive, which we will cover another day. Today, we're going to cover the exclusive right to represent the owner, which is a standard AIR listing agreement. And on the first page, you will put in the seller's name, seller's address, and of course the phone number and the fax number. We call that the owner. And then you will put in Centermac's name and we call that the agent. Centermac's address, whichever office you belong to. And then the phone number and the fax number. Okay, so usually we put a date for references, so we'll put May 1st as the date. Property premises, usually we put the address. Okay, let's say, I'll just put in address here. Assuming this is the property question. Next, city of Fremont, county of Alameda, state of California. Let's say this is a warehouse, 10,500 square feet. I'll put in approximate. Okay. Now, when it comes to the term of agreement, that's basically the duration of the listing. All right, let's go ahead and start this one on May the 1st. How about we sign a one-year listing for this one, which is 2018. And it ends April 30th. So it is exactly one-year listing. And on the transaction, it says the nature of the transaction concerning the property for which agent is employed. Let's say it's a sale. And see what it says here. Following sale price and terms. Okay, sale price is $6 million. Okay, sale price of $6 million. Now, read this. It says, and other additional standard terms reasonably similar to those contained in the standard offer agreement and escrow instructions for the purchase of real estate published by the AIR. So in other words, if you decide to use the listing agreement using the AIR form, so when you are about to prepare your offer, you should also use the AIR form for the offer and not switch to CAR form, because now your listing agreement is based on an AIR form. So decide what form you want to use. If you want to use the AIR form, use the AIR form all the way through. If you want to use the CAR form, try to use the CAR form all the way through. Okay. So this is actually a multi-purpose form. You can do it for a sale, or it says check the appropriate boxes. Can you check both boxes? I suppose you can. So in other words, if you have a seller that says, all right, you know what, I can either sell it or I can lease it. If you can't find a buyer for it, if you can find a tenant for it, I can lease it. So if you have that situation, you may be able to check both boxes. But if you only have a seller that only wants to sell and doesn't want to lease, then you will skip the second box. Now let's just assuming that you have this buyer, this seller, who could either sell the warehouse or who could lease it, depending on the situation. Now, you have a 1-year listing agreement. During this 1 year, you have the flexibility of finding a buyer for the warehouse or finding a tenant for the warehouse, whichever occurs first. I don't know how much you can rent it for. Let's say, for example, this is the one where you can rent it for, let's say, $1 a square foot, and it's a 10,500 square foot building. So on the following rent terms, you might just say, you know, $1 per square foot, okay? And sometimes you may have CAM charge, whatever the CAM charge amount is. If you don't know what a CAM charge is, that's because you have not done enough commercial transaction. CAM stands for Common Area Maintenance. Oftentimes when you have a commercial deal, if you are leasing a warehouse, for example, you can transfer the common area maintenance charge to the tenant, okay? So, although if you, let's say it's assuming that you skip the CAM charge, it's not that big of a deal either. You can simply put down and CAM charge to be negotiated with the tenant. Even this is negotiable. For the listing, we'll just put a price. For the lease, we'll put $1 per square foot, and CAM charge to be negotiated with the tenant. And then on number 2, it talks about the exclusive employment and rights. Owner hereby employs agent as owner's sole and exclusive agent to represent owner in the transaction and to find buyers or lessees, tenants, parenthesis lessees, as the case may be, for the property. Agent shall use reasonably diligent efforts to find such buyers or lessees. All negotiations and discussions for transactions shall be conducted by agent and on behalf of owner. Owner shall promptly disclose and refer to agent all written or oral inquiries or contracts received by the owner from any source regarding a possible transaction. What this means is you restrict the owner's communication with the prospective tenant or prospective buyer. So you are requiring the owner to forward all communications that the owner, for whatever reason, received directly from either the buyer or the tenant, such that you are in full control of the negotiation process. Remember, this is an exclusive right. It means that even if the owner finds the buyer or the tenant, owner still must pay commission to you, okay? And then the next paragraph says, 2.2 says, owner authorizes the agent to place advertising signs on the property. So whenever you get a commercial listing, you want to take advantage of the opportunity to put sign on the property. That's free advertising for you. Why wouldn't you want to put your sign on the property? People that drive by might be able to contact you. You will get other opportunities. I have situations where I actually put the sign on the commercial property, and the people that drove by actually call me to look at other properties. They might call me and say, well, I want something smaller. Can you find me something smaller? So if you put sign there, you might get opportunity like that. Also, if you put sign there, you're more likely to be in touch with buyers that are not represented by agents. Another opportunity for you. Now, these are not the type of sign that you put on your residential listing. They are more expensive and they are bigger sign, okay? But still, you can contract out these sign services to specialized companies that provide the sign for you. You can actually pay to have the sign made. And this is sign that you can put for the entire year. If you have a 1-year listing, free advertisement for the entire year. Why wouldn't you want to put your sign there? It's a no-brainer, right? Place a lockbox on the property if vacant. Now, as you know, for commercial real estate, we don't use Supra lockbox. Usually we use, just the regular lockbox. Accept deposits from potential buyers or lessees. Usually we just have the buyer, or we let the buyer wire the deposit directly into the escrow. But if it's a tenant, we can accept the deposit from the tenant. Distribute information regarding the property to participants in the multiple of the air and or any other appropriate local commercial MLS to other brokers and to potential buyers or lessees of the property. You have been authorized to provide information about the property to anybody that inquired on the property. Now, should you make them sign confidentiality agreement? David, what do you think? Whether it's a sale or a lease for commercial, you want to make them sign a NDNC, the non-disclosure, non-circumvention agreement? Oh, it's okay. But if the guy wants a rental, for example,
I haven't come across that.
I think you should make them sign confidentiality agreement if they want the rentals. I think it's a common practice in commercial real estate to make them sign some kind of confidentiality agreement before we provide financial information, like a rental, to the inquirer. I mean, companies like CB Richard Ellis, yeah, they make a sign that, right?
They send you a confidential agreement and sign it, buyer sign it.
I think we should make prospective inquirers sign these things, right?
Yeah.
So in commercial, it's a little different. Things are a little different in commercial real estate.
The property financial.
That's right. We release the financial after they sign the confidentiality agreement. Now you say here, though, actually even the AIR provides for it, right? Owner shall identify as confidential any information provided to agent that owner considers confidential and does not want disclosed. So I suppose that's a discussion that you have with your owner. You find out from the owner, do they have anything that they deem confidential? If they do, you want to make sure that they stamp the documents confidential, such that if anybody wants to see it, they need to sign some kind of non-disclosure, non-circumvention agreement. All other information provided by owner may be disclosed as agent may deem appropriate or necessary. Any consummation of a transaction, after consummation of transaction, agent may publish the terms of such transaction. An agent shall comply with the rules of professional conduct of AIR. An agent shall cooperate with participants in the multiple and may, at agent's election, cooperate with other real estate brokers known as cooperating broker. If the transaction is a sale and the agent finds a prospective buyer for the property, or if the transaction is a lease and agent finds a prospective lessee for the property, owner hereby authorizes agent also to represent and act as agent for such buyer or lessee, and owner consents to such dual agency. So like the car form, the air form actually allows dual agency. If the cooperating buyer broker finds a buyer or lessee, then agent shall act as agent for owner only. Cooperating broker shall act as agent for the buyer and lessee only. Okay, straightforward. And then it says here, even though the cooperating broker may share in the commission paid by the owner to agent. Now, if you list your listing on LoopNet, you have to disclose your commission split. Can the public see the commission split or just agents? Who can see the commission split on LoopNet? I know I can. If I search a listing on the LoopNet, I can see the commission split. Can a non-agent see the commission split on the LoopNet? It's public information, right? Basically, anybody can see the commission split. No? It will show up, right? Even with your basic membership. All right.
Not necessary for the buyer.
But they actually see it though. Okay. 2.5. Owner agrees the agent may, during the ordinary and normal course of marketing the property, respond to inquiries on the property by showing and providing information on the property, as well as to the competing properties, as well as on other competing properties to prospective buyers and lessees, and as such activities may result in the payment of commission to the agent by a third party. This is something you don't see on car form. In other words, this one allows you to be paid by someone else other than the seller. It says here, agent, it says here, we can prospective buyers, lessee, and such activities may result in the payment of a commission to agent by a third party. So I think explicitly you may receive compensation by the buyer in addition to receiving compensation by the seller, from the seller. So if you have a buyer that wants to pay you, right? But I think the Code of Ethics still requires, otherwise it might be a secret profit though. Even though the agreement, the listing agreement allows you to be paid by someone else, can you not disclose to the seller the fact that the buyer pays you $20,000? I think you still have to disclose now. But the seller cannot say, no, that's the benefit. Whereas in the car form, they don't have such a provision. The seller can actually say no, and you won't be able to receive the $20,000. Whereas under the air form, if the buyer wants to pay you 20 grand, the seller can't say no, even after you disclose to the seller, right? So in that regard, it is a better form for the agent. True? Okay. All right. The property. Let's talk about the property. The property shall include all of the following which are currently located on the property and owned by owner. permanent improvement, electrical distribution system, blah, blah, blah. Telephone distribution system, space heater, aircon, airlines, carpets, window, floor coverings. It looks to be all fixtures, which is pretty standard. All the fixtures come with the property. And then it says here, 3.2, within 5 business days after the commencement of the term, owner shall provide the agent with the following. The first one that we see is called the property information sheet. The property information sheet is another F form. It's not a card form, it's an F form. And then the owner is also supposed to provide all the leases, all the service contracts that the owner have for the property, and all the building plans and the reports that the owner has for the property. It says here the agent has no obligation to maintain the property or to make any repairs. Extension of term. Number 4, it's a very important provision. That one says, if the transaction is a sale and the sale is not consummated for any reason after the owner accepts an offer to purchase the property, then the expiration date of the term of this agreement shall be extended by the number of days that elapsed between the date owner entered into the sale agreement and the later of the date on which the sale agreement is terminated, or the date the owner is able to convey title to a new buyer free and clear of any claims by the prior buyer of the property. However, in no event shall the term be so extended beyond 1 year from the date the term would have otherwise expired. You know how why this is so advantageous to the agent? Let's say, for example, now remember I just signed a 1-year listing with the owner, right? And immediately I put it on the market. I found a buyer, and it's a 6-month escrow. 6 months passed, escrow did not close. What happened to my expiration date? Does it change? According to this paragraph, I get 6 extra months beyond April 30th. So the time that the property is in escrow does not count. It gets added to your listing period if it is through no fault of the agent that the buyer did not close. Sometimes you could have a situation where the deal did not close because seller was having issue with the title. In that situation, the listing expiration date gets extended by the same amount of time that the property was in escrow. Let's say you put a property on the market and tomorrow a buyer signed the contract and you open escrow tomorrow. And then comes November 1st, it fell out of escrow. You get 6 extra months on your listing agreement. So because it was sitting in escrow and it did not close, your new expiration date for your listing agreement now becomes October 30th, 2018, right? Okay. Commission, usually we use the schedule, Exhibit A, that is attached to the listing agreement. I usually don't use this box. I use this box. And then we have some example of schedule commission that you can use. Okay? And the rest of it is very similar to the car form, so I'm not going to spend time on it. Basically, you are protected, just like a car form. And of course, number 7 protects the owner, just like the car form. Okay? So sometimes when you negotiate with the owner, there may be certain persons that the owner wants to exclude from the listing agreement. If the owner does not protect themselves, then nobody is excluded. Then any buyer could potentially become a affirmed buyer such that the agent will be able to earn the commission. Owner's representation, the owner has full power, right, power, authority to sign. 8A is very good because now what happens if you got the wrong person signing this? That person might be liable to you. Okay. And the owner is not in bankruptcy. And there is no right of first refusal or right of first offer restrictions. But sometimes even the owner themselves don't know. It's up to you to find out from the owner if there's a right of first refusal or not. You know why I say that? It's because the owner might have hired a previous agent, and that previous agent may have the first right of first refusal. And if you don't know about it, you're actually putting the owner in jeopardy of having to pay 2 commissions. So that may be something for you to explore with the owner. Do you have an exclusive right? I mean, do you have a right of first refusal with another agent or not? Are you obligated to let another agent sell this property? Another tip for you. If you've ever been involved with a commercial lease, you want to create an opportunity for yourself that if this owner sells the property, at least to the tenant whom you found for the owner, you want to be able to earn commission from that sale. That's something you can negotiate with the owner. Miscellaneous. Not important, but the arbitration clause is important. So our new policy now will be to have our client initial the arbitration clause, and we initial the arbitration clause. If you don't know who to pick for arbitration, usually we just pick the AAA. Check this box. Okay. If you have any additional provision, you should add the paragraph numbers here. Don't start with paragraph number 1. You start with paragraph number 14 because the last paragraph is 13. So if you have any addendum, anything that is not on the standard form that you want to add, start with paragraph 14 and end with whatever paragraph. Oh yeah, that's right. Have a seat. Thanks. So you start with paragraph 14 and then you end with whatever paragraph you end with. Okay? All right? Do not repeat the paragraph number. If you're going to add any addendum, always start with a unique paragraph number. That way your contract is cleaner. Okay. Disclosure regarding the nature of a real estate agency. Now, remember we mentioned that agency disclosure is like a must, it's like a mandatory, right? Do you need a separate form or is this good enough? You better get a separate form. This is not good enough though. To avoid any problem, get a separate form, all right? And I'll show you where the standard, the separate AIR agency disclosure form is. So that pretty much sums up. But don't forget your agency disclosure. I am not going to save this because you know, this is just for illustration. Okay. Now let's go ahead and back up because I want to find that other form that you need. It's called the agency disclosure form. Never forget the agency disclosure form when you use the AIR form. They are not in the package. So you got to look for it. And it's right here. Disclosure of agency relationship, it's called. Right? If you forget, what happened to your listing agreement? It's not valid. So this is the agency disclosure that I'm talking about. You got to make sure that the seller signed the agency disclosure and the listing agreement together. Never forget it. Always remember it. All right? Highly important. Okay, that pretty much concludes today's presentation.